Welcome to Black Expat Stories, the show where we dive deep into the experiences of Black people across the diaspora who have boldly decided to immigrate abroad in search of a better life. I'm your host, Courtney, and I'm a Black American writer who also took the leap of faith and moved overseas. Given the current state of the U.S., have you ever thought about quitting America? And I don't mean a break, not a sabbatical either. I mean, opting out. Maybe you've been secretly asking, how much longer can I live like this? And am I building a life or just surviving one? So whether these questions live in your journal or in your group chat, you're not alone. A 2024 Monmouth University poll found more than 1/3 of Americans would like to settle in another country if they could. Another 2025 Gallup poll revealed that 40% of women between the ages of 15 and 44 say they'd leave the U.S. permanently if given the chance. Today's guest did it, and they wrote the book on it. Meet Dr. YANIQUE Redwood and Ronnie Galvin, the authors of We Quit America, Our Exit from a Country Designed to Kill Black People. And if you think that title is good, the book is even better. They join me to talk about what quitting actually means for them, why they chose Jamaica, what it took to rebuild their lives, and how leaving forced them to redefine security, success, and responsibility to their community. Because here's the real question. What do you do when the American dream, the house, the career, the 401k starts to feel less like a promise and more like a trap? If you've ever wondered whether staying is costing you too much, stay tuned. This may be the discussion that changes everything for you. Here's my conversation with YANIQUE and Ronnie. Hey, YANIQUE and Ronnie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi.
I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you. And it's very special for me because we met when you all were here in Playa del Carmen on your book tour. And your amazing book, which we're going to talk about in this conversation, made its way to our book club. And it was one of those reads that really sparked dialogue. And I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation, diving into your journey. YANIQUE, I know that you joined us for that conversation. And later, we all shared a rich conversation over dinner. And I left that night with a full heart and a head full of new questions. So... Now, it's such a pleasure to welcome you both to the show to talk about this book that I can't stop talking about, which is We Quit America. What a title. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. One of the things that I most appreciated about your book is how clearly you trace the buildup of your decision. And a lot of it was centered in historical evidence, which I appreciated because I'm definitely a history buff. And you write that the United States has stolen Black people's labor and has failed to make good on its promise to repair that harm, thus making it impossible for us to achieve equality. Wow, what a mouthful. And I think that's a sobering truth. And it's one that reframes quitting as a logical next step as opposed to just a rash decision, right? Both of you are activists and organizers who tried to make that change from within. Can you talk about some of those efforts and the moment you realized we've done all we can in this system and we have to leave?
So Ronnie and I actually met doing work in Atlanta. Ronnie was an organizer. I was at a university and we were doing a community university partnership, right, in some neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods in Atlanta. And there was so much involved, but ultimately we ended up creating a campaign called the Dirty Truth Campaign, which was about the ways in which these communities over time had just been extracted from, highways built through it, disinvestment, white flight, like they had suffered all of it. And by the time we started working in that neighborhood, there was just so much trauma, so much neglect. And people were still fighting, trying to get their voices heard. And so that's how we met, and we continued to do work over time, maybe on different trajectories, I would say, Ronnie, but still similar work. Ronnie and I always say we love Black people and we're working on behalf of and with Black people. I would say for me, it was around 2018 or so when I started to wonder if any of my efforts that had drained me, exhausted me, I was getting so depressed just thinking about how progress for Black people, you think you're making progress and then you look around and you're going backward. And for me, that was around the time that I started to wonder, can I do this work anymore? And can I do it? And maybe I could do it. Maybe I could support others who still believed, but maybe I needed to do it in a different way, outside of the country, possibly supporting people who are inside of the same institutions that I used to be in, things like that. So it was around 2018 for me. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, it ended up being, I hate to say this way because it was such a horrible time, but it ended up being an opening through which we were able to leave. And so we left in 2020. We said we would be back when the pandemic was over. We thought it was going to be a 3-month thing, and we didn't come back. So that was around the time for me. And Ronnie, what would you say?
Unique. When did I share Randall Robinson's book with you?
Yeah, I think that was it was somewhere around 2000, between 2014 and 16.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was about 2014. So first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. And shout out to Playa del Carmen still. Like, we still talk about Playa all the time. Don't tell the other places, but that was the place where we had the most fun. But don't tell the other places.
We'll keep it between us.
So I read Randall Robinson's book, Quitting America. If you know Randall Robinson, he's written about reparations and Haiti and the kind of global African diaspora, what we've been up to. He used to run an organization called Trans Africa. And he just transitioned, Unique, about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
About 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I read his book, I don't know, somewhere before 2010, I think it was. And he actually quit America. His wife was saying, kids, he had tried everything: organizing, agitation, policy making, the law, writing books. And he finally just decided, that's enough. And so I think the idea was always in my head since before 2010. And then I remember one time I was doing work in Montgomery County, Maryland, supposedly progressive enclave in the country. And I was sitting in a room full of muckety mucks, and we were trying to figure out something related to how we could make our economy work for everyone. But in my mind, I'm thinking for Black folks. And I remember sitting around that table. There was like president of a national hospital system, head of the county council, just all the muckety mucks. And I remember saying to them, if this doesn't work, I'm quitting. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guy who was on the city county council looking at me saying, Ronnie, we can't have you quit. I said, well, this got to work. And it didn't work. Because, whenever Black people's liberation and freedom is on the table, there's only so far that the American system is willing to go. And it happened in that instance. And that would have been right around, I think, 2014. So I think in my mind, in the back, I had already quit. And as Unique said, when the pandemic hit, we started making moves from that moment. But when the pandemic hit, it seemed to create the opening for us to step through into this quitting journey that we had been talking about and exploring.
It's interesting to hear you say that you started quitting from that moment. Those efforts that you were so invested in did not work. There's this phrase now in corporate America called quiet quitting. So it sounds like you both were on a quiet quitting journey until the pandemic opened up that opportunity for you to fully step into just exiting America entirely. And I think that is so interesting. And you also mentioned in the book that you're two very different people with very different approaches to life. Mm-hmm. What did it take for you as a couple to get on the same page about this move? And that's one of the prevailing questions. How do two very different people come to a consensus like this for a major life decision?
The thing that's really good about us, like that we just had in the bag, was like we deeply, deeply love Black folks and deeply, deeply love each other. And so we were, even though it was a lot of stuff, there was a lot of conversation, we were committed to each other and committed to Black people wherever Black people are in the globe. That's the first thing. So I'm the planner, I'm the Virgo. I am the one with the spreadsheets and the lists. And Ronnie, how would you describe yourself? if that's me. He's a Leo.
Like me.
Yeah. So I'm the dreamer and the agitator.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm the dreamer and the agitator. And I move with like inspiration.
Okay.
And I think it's the energy I use when I'm in community with other Black people, right? So both of those things came together, like this kind of dreaming and this kind of capacity. And I just want to say, there's nobody that executes like Dr. YANIQUE Redwood, right? But those two things came together very powerfully, and I just want to underscore what YANIQUE said. What made it really work for us was love.
Mm.
It was love. It was love. And in that love, or wrapped around that love, was I think a political consciousness that we both shared.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's very important. Now, some people will leave for all kinds of reasons, but YANIQUE and I left particularly because of our kind of political, economic, social analysis of the United States. And one thing that I want to underscore also, when you read the title, the headline is "We Quit America." The subtitle is "Where We Align," right? We both agree. And this, you talk about history. All we got to do is just look back to yesterday. We got to look back 100 years from now. Our analysis is that the United States of America, and frankly, much of the Western world, right? But the United States of America is literally designed to kill Black people and to extract as much as possible from Black people, Black lives, Black communities, and Black families. It's like it literally is designed to do that, right? And so you can tinker around the edges with something that was designed the way it is, but like if that was the intent of the system, it was clear to us that we needed to get out of that system, like physically remove ourselves from it. Even though the United States tentacles are all over the world, we need to physically remove ourselves from that system and now do the work of trying to help others of our people do the same.
As you put it, making the decision to quit America was a conscious act of self-determination and marriage preservation. I want to talk about this because that really speaks to how personal and relational this decision was for the two of you. And it's a sentiment that I share. I tell people all the time that, my husband and I, we were in a good place prior to moving, but making that exodus out of the US truly, it made the quality of our relationship and our marriage better and healthier. So how has this move preserved or strengthened your marriage?
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, before we left, because of the work we were doing, it was just round the clock. It was around the clock. It was waking up very early in the morning. I would just remember this image of Ronnie heading out with a little suitcase to go to the gym at like 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Trying to be healthy before getting to the office, working all day, coming back home, cooking, like it was around the clock. And not just the work that we were doing, but also like, Black folks, our families, we have to be very like connected to, involved with our families because our families in general don't have enough. And so there's always something breaking. There's always somebody who needs something. And because of our economic situation, we often could help. And so it was just so much more than the work that we were doing in the world. We were tired. We were exhausted. I would say that it was almost like, even though we deeply loved each other, it felt like we were roommates at some point. It just coming and going out the house, and it was really Ronnie, because I was at the front of this very concerned about, okay, if we leave, where am I going to work? Like, what's work going to look like? I was so focused on work. I'm a very work-centric person. Well, I have been a very work-centric person. Some of that has changed. And so it was really Ronnie who was saying, hey, I think we need to make this move for ourselves, for our marriage. And I just kept saying, but how's that going to work? Like, practically, how's that going to work? But it was really Ronnie who had that vision that it could work now. I was thinking, oh yeah, sure, for, retirement. But Ronnie was the one who really thought we could do this sooner.
Yeah. So this is Unique and I's second marriage, and not to each other. We were married to other people before, and we were committed to, love each other no matter what. But we knew we couldn't do that by ourselves, so we do a lot of therapy, and just as a matter of like maintenance and practice, because it's tough just being in love, and it's even tougher when you are Black and in love inside of a system that's actually designed to kill you.
Oh, say that.
You see how it's coming up? And if all you got to do is reflect on, think back to what our ancestors had to do to just try to not just get together, but stay together, and the energy and the intensity that this country used to tear our families apart. And so it doesn't look like it does today, like it did like in times of enslavement, Jim Crow, so on and so forth. But that same design and intent is at play even right now. And Unique and I were in couples therapy. Matter of fact, family therapy. And the therapist said to us, because we were in Washington, D.C. at the time, D.C. eats Black couples alive. And like when we looked around, because as it turns out, you know how like when you find a good therapist, like you refer other people or they refer you. And so it turned out that we had a network of friends. We were all going to the same therapy.
Oh, wow.
But we looked around, and slowly but surely, those couples were falling apart. They were falling apart. And I looked at us and said, as wonderful and as beautiful and as in love as I am with Unique and she is with me, like there's something in the water that's tearing us apart. And that's what really drove me. And I just refused to let this system that hates Black people tear up this love. And so that's part of what drove us. And I'm really appreciating you ask this question, because a lot of folks, when we're doing the book talks and we're doing podcasts and interviews, we skip over this part about Black love, Black relationship in the middle of this catastrophe that's called America. And we're talking about it, the three of us now, in the context of like our marriages and our relationships with our partners. But like this plays out in every relationship that Black folks have.
Absolutely. From friendships to family ties. I completely agree with you, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And it was important for me to cover this in our conversation because I believe that Black love is revolutionary.
Come on.
It's revolutionary. And there has to be something powerful and potent about when we combine our powers such that a system has been designed to literally thwart all of that, right? Like there's something there. So I'm really appreciative of the both of you for opening up about this particular aspect of your lives, because it's a necessary conversation as we talk about the divorce rates, right? As we talk about, even folks who may not be married quite yet and are seeking partners. I have single friends who are like, man, what's going on? And it's like, it's not you necessarily.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's the environment, right?
That's right.
And you cannot heal in an environment that is designed to keep you sick.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's right.
Now, the title of your book is very gutsy. We Quit America, Our Exit from a Country Designed to Kill Black People. Whew! When this became one of our book club picks, when I heard that title, I was like, oh, I need to read this book. Like immediately, I need to devour this book. Writing about quitting America is almost as radical as quitting itself, one would argue. What motivated you to share this experience in book form?
Yeah, so we wrote this book, it's 3 months. 3 months. Even though we've been thinking about these ideas for a long time, but last year, election is coming. And we're looking around. At the time, Biden was still in the race, right, Ronnie? If I got that right, Biden was still in the race, and it was looking like Biden was going to lose. And we thought, oh my goodness, there might come a time very soon where a lot of Black people are going to be thinking about leaving the country, given what we might anticipate from a white supremacist administration. It wasn't a how-to, right? So this book is not really about the visas or, like how to find a place or where to live and those practicalities. It is really about how people can prepare themselves like consciously, how their psychological fortitude might be built, right? Like, even if you can't leave right away, how do you get your mind right about this system? What are the ways in which you have bought in? We talk a lot about Amazon in this book because it felt emblematic of consumerism in the United States. And well, maybe especially me, very, very tied to like Amazon. So even when we left and I was in Jamaica, that's where we left to, we were constantly picking up Amazon packages and we had to really interrogate, like, what is this tie to consumerism that we can't let go of, even though we have physically left the country? And so we wanted people to start to grapple with those things. What are the ways in which the United States has said, this is what it takes to live a good life, and that we've bought into, that we need to actually interrogate and end our relationship with, even before you even think about leaving the country. And then there are other steps, right? Then there are people who actually completely leave. But we really wanted to write a book about those ideas, about America, about what we've bought into, and how to think differently, think more in a self-determined way about what it really takes to live a good life.
Yeah. And in my reading of it, it felt very empowering, and I felt that intention through and through. Go ahead, Ronnie.
The other thing that was going on is we were in the wake of Yanique's first book, White Women Cry and Call Me Angry, a black woman's, a black woman's memoir on racism and philanthropy. Right.
Y'all in these titles, okay? Listen. It's on my to be read list too. That one is high up there too.
I told you, I said, when she started working on that book, which is a couple of years before this one, I said, oh, and sure enough. And so I think we had seen the power of what happens when you put kind of your heart and your love for Black people, and in some cases your pain, on the pages. And so, like Yanique said, quitting America was an idea that we had been holding on to or been wrestling with for a while. And the kind of zeitgeist, the energy of the times, just said to us that last year was the moment to finally just put all of that stuff on paper and to present it really as an offering to the ancestors who gave us permission to be here, and to our sisters and brothers who are right now, as we speak, inside the United States trying to figure out, which way is up.
And now, with everything happening post-election, do you see people engaging with your story differently?
That's so interesting. Right around the election, we got some heat. We certainly like heard some things, saw some things, especially online. I remember one in particular when we, announced the book, and there was one woman who replied, "That's good and all, but did you vote?" Right? So it was almost like, why are you choosing this time when this election matters to talk about leaving, right? You need to stay in, you need to put your vote in. And we had voted, right? But we felt that. We did a book talk in Atlanta. Somebody stood up and said, "You're selfish for leaving. Y'all are selfish leaving us here. We need your talent here, right, in the fight. So, you're selfish." We got some heat at the beginning. I think now we are hearing, I think, Ronnie, you might get these more than I do. Like, bro, you were right. Like, we are either thinking about getting up out of here, or, we should have been thinking about getting up out of here. So, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely been a shift.
Because there have been more people from like right up to the election, right after the election, folks were kind of giving us a little salt. And there have been people, you know, get texts every like, man, like y'all did it, man. Like, but I just want to say that I do still have some level of, it's not disappointment, but I still don't believe that enough of our people are at least communicating the expressing the urgency of the moment. Even when Unique and I show up and we're talking about the book, Unique really is painting a picture many times of like what's possible if you leave. What is life like? What gets unlocked? What does healing and freedom look like? Meanwhile, I'm coming downhill down their throat at them saying, excuse my French, y'all get the fuck out. Like, we got to go now. Like, get out. Like, I'm grabbing. And it's not really a commentary of our people. It's just you can see the train wreck happening in real time. And I call it the burden of the prophet, not saying that we're prophets, but the burden of the prophet is when God or the ancestors or spirit has given you something, a line of sight that you can see that maybe nobody else can see or not bunch of people can see. And you're jumping up and down saying, y'all, come on this way. And it's not really happening at the level that you expect. And so the pain of knowing what happens if folks don't get out of the way is what really is in my heart. And so I I don't want things to get so difficult that Black folks have to leave, like refugees.
Yeah.
But like I wonder if that day is coming. And again, it's not a commentary on our people. It really is a commentary. Unique reminds me of this all the time. The American narrative set of lies is very powerful and seductive.
It is.
I forget who said it, but there's a writer who said, leave that raggedy lie to those who created it.
Ooh, that's good.
Leave that lie to those who created it, and then go pursue the truth that our ancestors actually died for and gave you permission to be here for. So that's what I'm wrestling with. And so, yes, we have seen some shift. What's really been exciting is meeting with folks who already quit in places like Playa, in places like Cairo, in places like Panama City. And the hope is that we can create such an example of what life is like in those places that the folks who are still in the States, they can see what we're doing. Because a lot of times, once I see it, then maybe I'll move on it. So that's some of our hope.
That's right. I hear you on that, Ronnie. And that's one of the main reasons why I created Black Expat Stories, because I know how difficult it is to be what you cannot see. And I believe that we are pioneers and we are shining examples of what's possible, to your point earlier about painting that picture of possibility, not just running from something, right? We don't want that narrative to dominate the conversation, but also talk about what gets unlocked. Like you said, the freedom, the healing, the community. When we are able to decolonize our imaginations, I think that is one of the things that I wrestle with too. And when I see, folks still adhering to the lie, still believing the fantasy and the seductive narrative, it's, for a long time, I felt like Chicken Little. I felt like I was yelling, like the sky was falling and nobody was hearing me. I was just really yelling into the void. And so now, post-election, I am starting to see a shift. I am starting to see a bit more urgency, not as much as I would have expected, but, for me, I think I credit that to just being on the outside, kind of looking in, because when you are swimming in those waters, capitalism does a great job of keeping us on this hamster wheel, keeping us constantly distracted and preoccupied with survival, such that just even thinking about something else and doing something else is almost impossible. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think that's why, Courtney, that moment of the pandemic, even though, again, it was horrible, so many people lost their lives, especially in the United States. When people were, at home, working from home, like starting to see new ways of being. And it's like, wait a second. And so as we travel around the world and meet with people and you ask, well, how long have you been gone? And that was one of the moments, right? 2020. It was one of those moments where people were able to just see something differently and make that move. And so, but I don't know if you remember how quickly they were trying to get us back to work. Get you
yeah.
back to work. So you can stop seeing that there's another way to live.
Yes. The whole back to normal narrative was
Mhm,
so
mhm,
prevalent. And,
mhm,
you know, coming from Atlanta, Georgia was one of the first states to lift the quarantine. And so I saw firsthand, it was just really, we were just under quarantine for a couple of weeks, if I can remember correctly. And this push, you know, to get people out, to get them back to normal was not by coincidence. I do think it was very intentional to keep us again in that hamster wheel
Exactly.
of, you know, just continuing that cycle.
Absolutely. Work, buy, work to buy, work, buy, work, buy.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I'd love to get your take on what's happening in the US right now, particularly with the swift and overwhelming actions of this administration, mass deportations, drastic cuts to federal jobs, Medicare, Medicaid. Elon Musk, who is no longer a special government employee, but he was positioning himself as a de facto commander in chief, if you will. It feels like the mask is off for a lot of people, right? We were talking about how there has been a shift. And as you write in the book, America is far from the democracy it claims to be. It is more accurately described as an oligarchy. And we've been hearing people like Bernie Sanders say that loud and clear. A nation whose benefits, privileges, and power accrue to and are vested in its wealthiest citizens. Given that framing, what do you make of this moment that we're in?
Yeah, Unique, can I jump in on that one?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think I think you said it right, Courtney, that the masks and the governors are off now. And so I think that the America has always been designed in a way so that there is a wealthy class of folks, which is usually the smallest group in the country, that is exploiting everyone else so that they actually concentrate more wealth and more power. And in that process of exploitation, Black folks are getting it always the worst, right? And so, but the truth of the matter is, if you are not wealthy, Christian, hetero, patriarch,
White.
right? That was the other one. You're there as a tool for their end. And so you've seen through history these moments where that class of people were either consolidating wealth or consolidating power, or both at the same time. And we're in another one of those moments. I think the other thing that we're seeing here is that America, I think it's chapter 2. We compare America to the Titanic. And if you know the story of the Titanic, that ship did not have to sink, but it sank because of the arrogance and the hubris of the people that designed it and the people who were driving it that night, right? They all believed that this ship was unsinkable, right? They were getting warnings from ships that were way ahead of it saying, hey, look, we're surrounded by ice. All of y'all behind us, slow down because it's dangerous out here. Full steam ahead, because they were trying to break the speed record. You know what I'm saying? And so America is very similarly arrayed right now, where it's been telling this story of invincibility, never will sink. But what is actually happening is the country is sinking right before our eyes. And the people who've been benefiting the most, they know it. Sometimes when something is taking its last breath, now, mind you, this breath could last 50 years. It could last for 100 years. We don't know how long it's going to last, but they know. And so they are trying to take every little last bit of what they can take from not just Black people, but all people out of that country. And so that's what you're seeing right now. And even we were talking about AI before we jumped on. what they're literally saying to the people in that country, we kind of don't need y'all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't need y'all, we don't need a federal government. We don't need all of these systems and programs that supported y'all. So we taking all of that back because all this going to get replaced by robots and AI, which is going to concentrate our money and our power even more. And so right now, there's this shift happening where like the country is on a slide and the people who've been benefiting are trying to get like as much as they can as the country is sliding into its demise, which is why this is the moment that our people got to get out. They're sending you all the signals, right? That like we've done all that we can do. Here's another example. Why are they trying to go to Mars and the moon and other planets? Because they've taken much as they could possibly. It's like there's no more to take. And they already see it. Again, it may be 20 years. You and I, we thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. They're thinking 20 years, 30 years down the line. They already see like there's nothing else here for us to do. And so we're ready to move on to the next thing. So that's what I think is happening. And you're just seeing a system that has always been designed for extraction do its thing.
Yes, I do believe that there's a death rattle. And I do hope that those of us who are watching and listening to this can see it very clearly for what it is. YANIQUE?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I would say is that it may have never been a democracy, right? Like
Arguably, yeah.
That's been the narrative, right? That's what we were saying. It's like the United States is such a good storyteller. Like it tells these stories, right? And sends them out into the world. I'm not from the US. I was born in Jamaica, and we got the stories. Like this is the place you go to where you can make money, where you can be free. Like they're all these narratives. But if you look back, if you really look behind all of it, it was never a democracy. Right? It was always an oligarchy. And even I resisted that. I remember Cornel West always using that word. And I'd be like, Cornel West, why you have to be so, But he was right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And even when we look at the formation of the country, right? It wasn't until 1964 that Black people got the right to vote. So even if somebody were to argue that there was a democracy ever, it was a very young democracy, right? We can only really begin to categorize that, and that's being generous,
Right.
since 1964. Because if all of the citizens are not involved in the decision-making process, it is not democracy.
Right. And if folks can buy campaigns and, give out $1 million checks, I mean, that's not a democracy.
Yeah, so we talk about this question of whether or not it's ever a democracy, and it's certainly not a democracy now. And there's a study that we cite in the book. I forget the two professors. I think one was from Northwestern. I forget where the other one's from. Gillens was one of the authors' names. And they talk about like federal legislation. And they talk about legislation that works for the masses of the people. And they talk about legislation that works for the wealthy elites. And they say they went and they measured what legislation was actually getting approved by Congress. And do you know that only 18% of the time is legislation being passed by the Congress that actually works for the majority of people?
Mm.
All the other times, the legislation, because of lobbyists, buying elections, money in elections, so on and so forth, all the other times, all of that legislation goes to support rich, wealthy, most times white people's interests. Literally, if you look at what laws are passing and which ones aren't, it tells you like we do not have a democracy. We clearly have an oligarchy. And it's kind of always been that way. But to YANIQUE's point, the story is we're a democracy, one person, one vote, but that's not actually the outcome.
Really quickly, here is the quote from those two authors: economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantial independent impacts on U.S. government policy, while average citizens and mass-based interest groups have little or no independent influence.
And that's one of the reasons why I bristle at this idea that people have when we talk about these issues and they automatically want to throw out voting as the solution, right? Just as you mentioned earlier in the conversation when you were talking about leaving and people were like, well, did you vote? And it's like, sure, but how much of our votes really count? How many of our votes really count? And according to this study, not very much.
Not very much.
That's right. It's so interesting. So what you asked about the title of the book and the timing of the book. So we were playing around with some other titles.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. So We Quit America was always going to be the headline, but because it was happening in this tumultuous time leading up to the election, we were playing with this subtitle that said, "We Quit America in the age of Obama,
Trump, Biden, and Harris."
Because we thought maybe Harris might pull it off. And what we were trying to say, to your point, is that because of this dynamic in the political system, it really doesn't matter who the president is.
Doesn't matter.
And I know we're going to get some pushback. I know we're going to get some pushback for this, but I can't help but agree with you, because even if we think about the way that systems work, and I try to break it down to people like this, a system is designed to work regardless of who is at the helm of it.
That's right.
Right? And so when we think about America as a system, as an empire, it doesn't matter who the figurehead is, because the system is designed to do what the system does. That's why it's a system.
Right.
That's why it continues, right? That's why it's preserved.
Right. Yeah, all the infrastructure has been set. It's all locked, right? All the policies, everything that's been built over time, it's all locked in. And so, yes, that changes. And, there are differences, right? So we're not going to say that there are no differences whatsoever. Ronnie, would you disagree with me?
So I do have a take on that.
What's your take, Ronnie?
There is a difference, let's say, between today's Democratic Party and today's Republican Party. And I would say one of those parties will kill you quickly. The other one will kill you by poisoning your water.
Right.
It's a little slower, but you still, both of them are designed to kill you. Right. And so, and that's a hard thing for our people to hear, particularly because this is the other thing we get back. Our people bled and died for this. Our people sacrificed for this. Our people built this, right? And we get all that. Yes, we do. But we have to remind them they didn't do all of that under their own volition. For most of that time, we were enslaved. They forced us to do it for free.
Right.
Right. And so anyway, it's hard given fighting for the vote, marching in the streets, all the things. We went to the schools. We did everything right. And Yanique has a part of the book, it's in the beginning, where she talks about all the things we've done. And still, right, you look around and if we're not careful, people are going to be blaming Black folks, and it's already happening, for the fact that we have not reached the level that we intend to reach. But it's not because of lack of effort. It's not because of lack of imagination. It's not because of lack of will. It's because we've been bumping up against a system that has no intention for us to make any progress. And if you look throughout history, every time Black folks took one step forward, the system said, nah, we're not having that.
Right.
After Reconstruction, what came after Reconstruction? Jim Crow, right? Black folks kept fighting. So, okay, we're going to have our own separate neighborhoods. We're going to be fine. If we're going to be separate but equal, even though it's going to be unequal, we're going to do what we're supposed to do. What they do? They came and burned our neighborhoods down. Hanging us from trees. You know what I'm saying? I think that helping our people, this is another purpose for the book, helping our people see the rhythm of kind of what we've been doing and then how the country pulls a rug from under us was another important goal of the book and putting it out there.
So Courtney, I as I'm listening to this conversation, I'm a little tentative here because I don't want it to seem as if we had this analysis and we just said we're picking up and leaving, and no, it wasn't a struggle, right? Like
Yeah.
it was a struggle. Even though we have these beliefs, even though we see things the way we see it was a struggle because we had also bought into these narratives. So when I was saying to Ronnie, okay, how we gonna eat? Like how's the income gonna work? Right? How's our health? What about health insurance? Well, what about our retirement accounts? Like those were all the things that we had bought into. And so we had to make some really radical shifts to like undo what we had bought into. So for example, our very first house, the first house we bought when we got married in Atlanta, we bought it, it was so cheap. And we said we would never sell it ever. That this was going to be the house that if the world falls apart, this is where we're going to go, right? We were living in DC at the time. And when 2020 happened, right? So the world's falling apart. And we were like, okay, where is safe? Where is the safe place to live? And we struggled with that thing because we were like, well, maybe they're going to have food shortages here in Jamaica, right? Ideas we had bought into, in a country that's not the US, a developing country, they're not going to be able to handle this, right? Jamaica handled that pandemic beautifully, right? In terms of just basic epidemiology. I'm an epidemiologist. Basic epidemiology that kept people safer than in the United States. People used to text me and say, well, you be safe down there in Jamaica. And I'd be like, you be safe.
Right.
Because the US was a mess.
Yes.
It was a mess. And so there were these ideas we had bought into that we had to interrogate about where is safe. And so we said, okay, we said Atlanta was always going to be our safe house, right? Here we are. We're in Jamaica. It's 2020, 2021. Can we stand on our belief that the United States is not safe for us? Can we get out? Can we sell our house? That one that we said we would never sell. Can we buy something in Jamaica, right? With the money from the sale so that we would no longer have a mortgage, right? In a place where the dollar fluctuates so much, you're not going to make any money on your house, which is how we've been told. That's how you make money.
Right.
Buy low, sell high. So we had to undo all of that. We sold our house in Atlanta. Major decision. Like we talked about that thing just over and over again. We paid off our house in Jamaica because we had bought it a few years before. And now we have no mortgage. And let me tell you, you don't have a mortgage. When you don't have a mortgage,
Look.
your life changes. Your
Yeah.
life changes, right? But we didn't, at the beginning, we were afraid to make that move because we still had in our minds that the US safer, more stable than the country that we were in. And it took a lot to like take that risk and say, wait a second, no, we feel safer in Jamaica. That's where we're going to plant our seeds. That's where we're going to build. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that example of like, it was tough, even though we have this analysis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, YANIQUE, because it's definitely an important piece of the conversation. And like we have been just talking about throughout this discussion, the ways that American exceptionalism really seeps into our conditioning and into our mentalities and to our approaches to life. Like Black people especially are told that home ownership is one major pathway to wealth building and generational wealth, right? And so I can only imagine what it took for the two of you to subvert that narrative, to take a risk, because what I want people who are listening and watching this to really hear is that you're not always going to have all the steps laid out before you, right? You're not going to be at step A and be able to see all the way to the end to Z. A lot of this has been about taking leaps of faith, trusting your intuition, right? And trusting each other and knowing that this is something that you through your analysis, through wrestling with it, it is not a rash decision, right? I really rally against a lot of these sexy social media reels. jumping in there with no nets. You all thought this out. You all had been working and trying and striving and arrived at this conclusion. And so I know money is at the top of mind for so many people as they contemplate their next steps. You even write in your book, we are no longer working ourselves to death for some future promise of retirement bliss that may never come. Because that's what we're taught, right?
Yep, that's right.
Like the traditional Christian narrative, if you do all these good works on earth and then your heaven is going to be on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that, when you said that, it hit me hard. How did quitting America shift your relationship to money, retirement, and long-term planning? You talked about selling the home that you never thought you would sell. How else has your relationship to money shifted?
Yeah, Courtney, you probably don't know, and I don't know if this comes out in the book, but like I'm also an ordained minister.
Ah, yes, so, I remember you saying that.
And you preaching right now.
Well, I'm a preacher's kid. I got a little word in me. You preach.
So, because like this idea of retirement as our heaven is a lie, right? And particularly for Black folks, and YANIQUE has this public health background, but all of the data says that like Black folks are dying quicker than anybody else in the country. And it's because we're in a system that's designed to kill us and produce that outcome. And so watch this. My father, 22 years in the United States Air Force, then worked probably for another 15 years, maybe longer, 20 years as an aircraft mechanic for a couple of airlines in the country. Pension, all that stuff, saving up, got to 65 and dropped it. And this happens over and over and over again. And so we're paying into these pensions and insurance plans and 401ks and 403bs, right? And think about how all of capitalism is benefiting from all of that while our money is sitting there. And then we don't get a chance to, right? And so we see that analysis and we see that pattern. And for us, one of the things that we are considering right now, we're on the front end of this right now, is getting our money, the little bit of money, the 12 cents we got, getting our money out of the country.
Yes. Divesting.
We've already started that because we no longer put money in a 401k. We stopped doing that several years ago because the math wasn't mathing. It's like we can't build in a new place and keep investing in an old place. And so we had to make choices. This is another one of those choices. Are we going to keep putting money into a 401k and we're trying to like build in a new place? Like we needed to do certain things. Like there was some road paving. We wanted to get solar power to reduce our overhead expenses. Like those things cost, and we couldn't do both. And so it was like, okay, we're going to make this shift again. Like we got to stop investing in 401k systems in America. So that was yet another major decision for people who have been doing the 401k thing since we started working.
Yeah. And there's a sister, YANIQUE was actually doing a talk on her first book, White Women Cry, in Chicago. And there was a community organizing salt of the earth. Like she wasn't just grassroots, she's underneath the grassroots kind of system. Who heard YANIQUE talking about her first book. And I think YANIQUE, you mentioned We Quit America. And she said, I think I've already quit. And this sister was like, who needs a 401k? Like, ain't nobody got time for that. And she is taking all of her money and all of her resources and all of her influences. And she says, I'm investing it in me, in my family, in my community. Why would I invest in Wall Street when I'm going to invest in my street?
Did you know that since the 2024 U.S. presidential election, internet searches for how to move abroad have increased by over 1,000%? Maybe you've been searching too, imagining what life abroad could be like. But while you're searching online, I invite you to also search your heart. Moving abroad is a big decision, and it's important to get clear on what a life of freedom and fulfillment looks like for you. I'm Courtney Bowden, creator and host of Black Expat Stories, and nearly 4 years ago, I moved to Mexico. And without a doubt, living abroad has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. That's why I created something special to guide you, the Blaxit soundtrack and soul work journal. It's my free gift to help you reflect, dream, and plan. With 6 curated playlists and printable journal prompts, it's designed to inspire and ground you, just like music and journaling did for me during my own process. My hope is that it will offer you the same support as you navigate your next steps. They say home is where the heart is, but what if your heart is calling you somewhere else?
There's a brother in Ghana. His name is Diallo Sumbri, right? You remember, was it 2019, the year of return in Ghana? Like everybody was running to Ghana, like with Afrochella and all that stuff. We went to Ghana. We was all over there, boom, having a good time. Everybody going to Ghana. Well, this brother was in the middle of creating all that. His name is Diallo Sumbri. He's in the book. Same thing. Diallo said, all of that money that I was investing in the system that's designed to kill us, why would I do that? Why would I invest in the thing that's killing me? He says, man, I'm taking all of my money and I'm putting it in the ground in Ghana. I'm building a community for my family and my community and my community in DC in Ghana. That's where the investment is. And so that's what we're doing right now. Like we're divesting so that we can actually invest in the places and the infrastructure that our people need when they decide to get out. And we think, you said this earlier, Courtney, like about being able to like build something and model something that our people can see.
Yeah.
We think we know we are in the next example and iteration of the Great Migration for Black people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Remember, like, all Black people like moved from the South up north because of all of the danger and the violence they're experiencing in the South, right? We think now the exodus is not from the South to the North in the United States, but it's from the United States to the diaspora.
It's global now.
It's global.
Yeah. And, I'm really glad that we are hitting on this topic of retirement and 401ks. And people might be a little bit resistant to this particular portion of the conversation, especially those who are quickly reaching that retirement age. But I want people to consider what is happening now. We are in an economic freefall. There are people that I know who are sick looking at their 401ks right now, at how much money they've lost. So when you talk about investing in a place that's designed to kill you, it's also designed to bankrupt us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, if you could go back and revisit some of your major financial decisions, whether it's around mortgages, retirement savings, or even your approach to employment, what might you do differently? Because I want to hear this. I need to sit at the feet of people who have been there, done that. As a millennial, we've been sold this dream of you work hard, you invest in your retirement, but people who are my age and younger are quickly seeing that retirement may not look the same way that it looks for, like my mother, who is now retired. There may not be Social Security for us to draw, even though we're still paying into the system, a lot of us who might be W-2 employees. So what might you do differently for those who are really contemplating doing it differently?
Wow. What a question. If I could go back and redo the decisions or the time frame leading up, I would experiment with my talents, with all the things that I have loved. I love fashion. I've loved all kinds of things over time. I would do more of those, invest in more of like building my talent or my interests so that when this moment arrives and I need to like cut the job cord, because I had to do that, right? I had to leave my job, that I had other things to fall back on. And so right now I look at younger people, actually. Jamaica, there's this one woman who teaches a dance class. She does hair. Like, there's just these things that you can do that we may have left behind for these jobs, right? And as we move around the world, it just seems like there's so much entrepreneurship. There's less kind of saving like bulk of money, and more like, let me work for the day or the week or the month, right? There's not this like hoarding. I would just really invest in my entrepreneurial pursuits versus being so hooked to a job, right? The job, the steady paycheck. I would be practicing what it's like to think about money differently than the job route. So that's what I would play with. That's what I would play with is entrepreneurship.
What about you, Ronnie?
This is why we're so aligned. It's the same exact thing. That's why I was smiling over here. And Courtney, did you say that you're a millennial?
I am.
Okay. So I think this is not advice to the millennials. The thing is that the millennials are giving advice to us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like when I watch what I'm perceiving millennials are moving, to Unique's point, all of the kind of narratives that our generation invested in, right? A lot of them, the millennials said, we not finna do that. Right?
Mortgages.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of us couldn't afford to.
Right.
We didn't have the ability to.
I think our two children are like the prime example of this, right? So Unique and I both, professionals working like in our careers, like all the stuff that to say you got to do, go to the best schools, get a good job, save money, like move up the ladder and whatever industry you're in, invest in the 401ks, get a house, all this stuff, right? What our children were doing. And I think there's a whole generation of young people who are doing the same thing. They were listening to us when we came home. They heard us talk about like the trifling blankety blanks on the job. They heard us talk about the micro and the macro and just aggressions. They saw us like, even with all the like status that supposedly we were getting working in these places, they saw us like every month, like trying to make the money work. They saw all the stuff that was happening to their family members and how we were having to move money around. They saw people dying early, whether it was like from disease or violence, whatever it was. And I think they were like, that ain't working.
Yeah.
And so what I would do differently, right, if I could, is I would have been listening to the young people sooner. And I actually think that our younger people, they actually have had the answer. They have the answer and they're perfectly positioned to take advantage of this moment. What I think those of us who like went inside the system and played the game and who have any level of resource, right? If we can put that together with the wisdom and the energy and the truth of living that millennials and other generations behind are expressing right now, that is the power of our movement and movement. And so that I would do that. I would like be trying to connect, and our children prove that over and over. Like, so the path that we thought they were going to be on, they're going to have houses and all that stuff. We can't even get our daughter to get a coffee. If you were to give my daughter a car, she'd be like, I'm good. I'm going to Uber, walk, take the bike, whatever. So, but meanwhile, when I was coming up at 15, I was at the driver's license office. I was trying to get out the next day. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I think the young people, millennials and others are on to something. And I would have actually listened to them sooner.
Thank you both for sharing that. And when you mentioned your children or the children of the millennials looking at their parents and really observing some of the struggles and the hardships, I can definitely attest to that, because we talk about retirement, we talk about our folks dying early, dying so young so that they can't even cash in on their hard work. I'm a product of that. My father passed away at 49 years old. Now, he did get a chance to retire. He was only retired 5 years when he passed. But when my father passed at that young age, because now that I'm getting older, I'm like, man, that was a young age. That shifted the way that I decided to live my life from that moment forward. And I decided that I was going to live, that I was going to invest in me, and I was going to take a risk on me, bet on me, hone my talents and my skills. And I'm so glad that I did that, because there's some studies out that, and I've been tracking this for years, especially as an entrepreneur, but that say that by, I believe, like the year 2040, the majority of professionals are going to be consultants. They're going to be self-employed. And while I don't believe that entrepreneurship is everybody's calling, I do believe that everybody should be entrepreneurial, in that we understand what our skills, our talents are, and we're able to successfully market them to gain opportunities. And there was something that you said in your book, and I can't remember which country you referred to. Maybe it was Ghana, but you were talking about how people really do kind of work for the day and for the week and for the month. And there's no such thing as retirement in a lot of these cultures, so that's another thing that we've bought into, where we're selling our present for a future that may not even exist.
Exactly. That's right. There's a woman in Thailand we interviewed in the book, and we asked everybody the same question. What are you going to do for retirement? I believe she was in her 30s, and her answer blew me away. She said, but I already feel retired. Right? Like, she works when she wants to. She does consulting, financial consulting, and she says, but I already feel retired, So retirement isn't something in the future for her. In her 30s, it is now. It's the way she lives now. And Ronnie, you and I were just talking about this. I was like, I think we're semi-retired. Yeah, we don't work as much as we used to.
And how does that feel?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's amazing. We have time for each other. We have time for other pursuits like entrepreneurial, and so we wouldn't trade it. We're not going back. We're not going back to the hamster wheel. Mm-mm. And Courtney, as you were talking, the fact that you are away from, I'm assuming that you're away from all of those racialized aggressions in your daily life. I promise you have more of a chance of living long, right, than folks who are in that every day, right? Those aggressions wear us down. They weather our bodies. They accelerate our aging. They cause us to die sooner. And so you actually have probably more of a chance of living long if you are not inside of that system, not having those experiences every day. And so I'm just so thrilled for you to have made those decisions given what happened with your dad. It was a life preserving decision.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that. And I tell people all the time that making my exit from the US feels like I have added years to my life.
Yeah.
Because I am not burdened by those daily macro and microaggressions that you mentioned earlier. And, I already have longevity, at least on one side of my family. My grandmother will be 99.
Wow. That's amazing.
Where is she?
She's in Mississippi.
Ah.
And if I know that if my grandmother, who came of age in the Jim Crow South, the belly of the beast, Mississippi, could make it to 99 years in that environment, I know I have a chance. I have to have a chance.
That's right.
Being out of it, Now, one of the things that we don't talk about enough is the grief that sometimes comes with leaving. You don't just quit a country. You quit relationships, you quit routines, and even parts of yourself that are tied to that place. What has quitting America forced you to grieve?
For me, it was work. I had to really come to terms with not having a job anymore, not having, colleagues that you're working on something with every day. I used to overwork to prove my value, to know for myself that I'm a valuable person. And so I had to really wrestle with that. That you have value even when you're not working. Huge. It took me months and months and months. It is taking me months and months and months to process through that. So I'm working with a therapist on that, because America says your value is in your work. It's what you can produce. And so when I wasn't producing as much as I used to, I wondered, what am I doing? what am I doing? What value do I have? And so that for me was part of what I had to grieve. And it's gotten better, much better, but it's still a process. It's still an undoing for me.
What about you, Ronnie?
Yeah, I'm really appreciating the spirit of this conversation. And I love this question around grieving because it's not a practice or emotion that I've paid enough attention to. And some of my friends have pressed me on this. I will say that there's only a few things that I miss. And it's like, being able to get to family quick. We have a family member, YANIQUE's sister. They're going to have a Juneteenth celebration here coming up shortly. And like the people are going to come together for it. They're going to have a ball. So like, I'm sad that we miss things like that. A good friend of mine, his mother transitioned, the funeral's on Friday. I played football with this guy in college. He's my brother. I'm not going to be there for that. So like, I feel sad about those things. I'm not really built to like grieve over like something I'm leaving. Like I was an Air Force brat.
Okay.
And so like we moved around and I always had this thing, Courtney, where like, what's the next adventure? So there's some of that, like that's stretching me away from like grieving. But the thing that causes me to grieve, and I alluded to this earlier, I'm really sad and I feel a level of angst around what Black people continue to endure. And I just, my grieving is the current state, ongoing, relentless attacks that our people are having to endure, and just like feeling the weight of that's what I'm grieving.
Yeah.
Unique and I talk about this stuff all the time. I just wonder, like, what else can we do? What else should we be doing to help our folks get out of the way? And sometimes I don't even know what to do with that grief. And some of my friends who are ritualists have given me some practices so that I can like get that stuff out of my body. But that's the weight that I feel. We were in the middle of it. It might even be, it's not survivor's guilt, but like, I think it's something that I'm feeling that we kind of are on the outside looking in.
Yes.
But I can still feel like what our folks are having to like endure every day, and not knowing all the time what to do beyond like this book and telling the story and trying to build the infrastructure for the future, not knowing if that's enough. So that's what I'm reading.
Yeah, Ronnie, I grapple with that myself as somebody who, like you and Yanique both, I love Black people. I love us. Yeah. And I want to see all of us free. I do. And it is a lot to grapple with. I often don't know what to do with those feelings, and I channel some of that energy into building this platform. And oftentimes I feel like, is it enough? I wonder if it is enough. But I do believe that being an example and raising your voice and sharing your story will certainly inspire so many people to, if not leave, consider doing life differently, right? Because in your book, you also talk about this idea of quitting America while you're still in America, And so I encourage those who are thinking to themselves, well, man, I can't leave right now. The circumstances are not where I can make my exit. In this book, y'all, they lay out how you can begin to reframe your relationship with the country that was designed to kill you. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for this gift. I do believe this is part of our legacy. This is our legacy work. And it is evergreen. I'm happy that you took this approach instead of going the route of, oh, here's how you get your visas, because all of that information changes. But this is evergreen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, Courtney.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Now, books are time capsules. They reflect a moment in thought, but ideas evolve. If you could put out another edition, what would you expand on, and what feels even more urgent to talk about right now?
Whoa. You are in the Kool-Aid.
I have an answer for me. So the book is written in terms of what, there's a sharp critique of the United States, right? So it's like sharp critique, we need to get away from that. But now that I'm on the other side, living outside of the United States and traveling to other places where Black people are living, I wonder if this book could be written in terms of what the world has to offer, right? It doesn't have to always be, oh, it's so bad here, so let me go. There's so much good. There's so much good in other parts of the world. You know, we just left Cairo, Egypt, blown away. An amazing city, right? It kind of puts New York to shame. And it's like people don't expect that. It's vibrant. Yeah, I just can't explain. And we don't know this. And so there's just so much in other parts of the world for us that I wonder if this book could have been written in terms of attraction. Like, what's attractive about the world that we might be able to thrive in other places? So that would be mine. That would absolutely be mine. Yeah.
Courtney, you asking all the questions. You asking all the questions. And by the way, part of the reason why we have even the space to even dream about these things is because of our exit, our quitting, and how we've reorganized our lives, relationship to work, so on and so forth. And the reason why I give you that preamble is because I got two, right? And so one is and we're working on this now, the Pan-African Underground Railroad.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So like Black folks have already exited. We've been exiting since they dragged us there. We've been exiting and quitting even while we were in the plantation field, while we're in the corporate boardroom, and exiting now, like physically leaving. And so I think we need to like the project is reminding our folks that we've been doing this.
Yes.
And then to point you made earlier, but I remember the biblical admonition, for lack of vision, the people perish.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? People will perish as long as they don't see the vision. So to Unique's point, how do we actually like paint the picture so that people see like where are these places around the world and what does the infrastructure look like so that when our people decide to leave, it's already there. They can see it. It's easy for them to exit. Those of us who've already exited, we've already created the path so that people can walk that path more easily than we did. So that's the first project. It's kind of like Pan-African Underground Railroad. This kind of network of safe houses around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second one, and this is a reaction. It's kind of a blend of Unique's first book, White Women Cry, and our second book together, We Quit America. I think that what we need globally, what we could benefit from globally, is more power and more solidarity between Black people, right? The power of our connection will determine the power of our action with each other and in the world. And I do think there's a lot of healing that can happen amongst us, particularly, right, between Black men and Black women, and frankly, all the genders in our. And so, Unique, I'm going to put this out there only because Courtney's been stirring the water, but Courtney, don't tell anybody, right? Well, I'm working on an idea of what reparations would look like between Black people, and particularly Black men and Black women.
Ooh.
And if we could actually have reparative practice as a part of our way of dealing with conflict, trauma, and particularly the trauma that Black men have exacted on Black women, that's where we're going to start, right? I think that the healing that comes out of that will help us generate more solidarity, more connection, and more power to build this thing that we're talking about all over the world. So those are the two. Those are things that we're dreaming of. Those are things that are actually on the drawing board that we're working on right now.
Oh, these are some powerful ideas. Oh my goodness. And I'm aligned with both the Pan-African Underground Railroad as well as the reparations, reparative type of conversations and connections we can make among each other. And I'm starting to see so much of that through examples like the Grits and Eggs podcast hosted by Deontay Kyle, where there are a segment of Black men who are raising their voices and talking about these things and, talking about how necessary it is for us to repair and heal our relationships with each other, because again, in a system that's designed to break us, to kill us, Black love is revolutionary, and more of us are awakening to that, and I take heart in that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Now, we live in a time where radical ideas get watered down for easy consumption. What's a key message from your book that you feel is in danger of being misunderstood?
We've already said it 1,000 times, right? The country is designed to kill us. Like, people's brains are going to be like, wait a minute, what?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean designed to kill us, right? And so I've already gotten pushback because folks have bought into the narrative that this is the best thing since sliced bread, and they call it Tina. There is no other alternative, right? Like, what are you talking about? It's just, this is the best there ever was, and that ever will be. And so I think that idea is provocative, and I think it's going to be one that is hard for most people on face value to accept. And so got to have a lot of political education to help socialize that idea. And then, Courtney, again, to the point you made earlier, if enough of us are living like lives beyond that design, right, it'll help folks see maybe the truth of what the water that they're in right now. So for me, I think that is an idea that is tough for people to like embrace and wrestle with. And I think if folks get that, it starts to unlock a whole bunch of other things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yanique, what about you?
Yeah, I think there's this idea that Ronnie and I, middle class, married, and therefore you can make a move like this. And it's a move that in some ways it's for some people. It's for some people. And we absolutely recognize that we had some access, right? So we had a house, right? We owned a house in the United States. Well, I need to stop saying that. We had a mortgage on a house in the United States. And so, and we were able to sell that house in order to make this move. Some people don't have that, right? And so we recognize that, like we're not naive. However, the reason why we have so many examples in the book of people who have left is that people leave with fewer resources than we did. People leave and reframe what's important to them and just say, you know, I'm not gonna buy health insurance anymore. I'm gonna do my damnedest to stay healthy. I'm gonna stay healthy. I'm gonna eat right. I'm gonna exercise. That's my health insurance. Like, people find ways to make this move. And so I do think sometimes there is a like, oh yeah, they can do it because they had some resources. And we also believe that, yeah, sometimes people with resources move first and then people come along. It's always been our way, right? Those who can move, and then they bring someone else with them, right?
Yeah.
My mom now lives with us. I think at some point, maybe one of my aunts will be coming. And so people come when somebody makes a move. So we just, I do get nervous that that part will be misunderstood, that this is only something you can do when you have some resources.
Yeah.
Courtney, can I jump in on that also? Just one other thing real quick.
Yes.
The other one is, so whatever idea or pattern of living that you thought you had or that you actually had in the United States, that you should just pick that up and transplant it in another country.
No.
Not gonna work.
Not only is it not going to work, but like you then become damage in the new context.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so, you know, thinking you're just going to go to another place and like, you know, ball out, do whatever, and like engage in the same kind of behavior and extraction and social economic violence that we were running from, right, in the United States. Like, understanding like there's a way that we've got to enter these contexts.
Yes.
Honor the people and the traditions and the histories that are there. understand like the social hierarchy, who's winning and who's losing, and like how just our mere presence with the American dollar and the blue passport changes the whole temperature in the place. So I think we got to be mindful of those things.
I'm writing a book right now about this, about mindfully migrating and what does it mean for Americans to enter these spaces, right? These other countries, these locations with all of our privilege. And even as people of color, we have privilege. And how do we avoid enacting a lot of those colonizer type tendencies in our new locations and doing the harm and the damage? So thank you for mentioning that. And Yanique, one of the other reasons why I started Black Expat Stories and wanted to talk to everyday people is for that very reason that you mentioned. You know, yes, there are people who are more resourced than others, but here on this platform, we are intentional about highlighting and amplifying the voices of everyday Black people who have found creative, radical, and innovative ways to make their moves so that they can thrive and live their best lives abroad. And I don't want that to get lost in translation, right? And when I think about this moment, Ronnie, earlier you mentioned the fact that we are in America's next Great Migration. While studying the original Great Migration, we did see that those who had the resources left first. They were very instrumental in creating infrastructure and sharing information, right? We had folks start publications, newspapers, sharing the news. So I think that there is something to be said about those of us who do have more resources than others coming and setting the stage so that other people who decide to make their exit can have a soft landing.
That's right.
These final minutes of our conversation, I want to talk about the Blaxit movement because we're kind of already doing that right now, but I want to tackle it head on. What's your take on the current state of the Blaxit movement? Are you seeing more Black folks actively leaving? Because I know that in a portion of your book, you interviewed folks who did make their exit. And is there anything about the movement that concerns you beyond what you mentioned earlier, Ronnie, which was understanding that we have to migrate mindfully?
Yeah, for me, it feels like every week I'm reaching out to somebody or somebody reaches out to me, just checking in. It's like, oh, I'm leaving. It's happening. It's like, oh, I'm going to Mexico. I hope that people who are leaving and going to particular places will spend the effort to deepen their relationship with each other. We've seen like Playa, like you all are really creating like strong community. I just hope that we do that, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, I left, I'm just going to form my little family or my little whatever, I have fewer expenses, I'll eat out a little bit more, whatever. But like really invest in deepening relationship, in deepening analysis, like collective entrepreneurship, like really, because we have the space
Yes.
to like do some of the things that we have talked about in the United States, but couldn't quite do, maybe, that we don't forget that we have the capacity and the community to do that. So that's my hope as we make our exit.
What about you, Ronnie?
Yeah, you took my number one, Yanique. I was going to say, okay, no, it's
Great minds think alike.
no, and I think it's kind of understandable because folks are just trying to get out, and I think the next phase of the work is the quality of community that folks build with each other in those places, right? But related to that, I have two things that I'm watching. I don't know if they're concerns yet. So when we listen to people, and it's something that we've noticed even in our own travels, we moved around to country, trying to see, like, is this a place where Black folks can live? One of the things that's at the top of the list is cost of living. And Yanique, this goes to your point around deepening analysis. There's a reason why things might be extremely more cheap in another country, particularly when we're carrying American dollars. And when you consider, particularly like in the Caribbean, so we're in Jamaica, that's where our home base is, the relationship between American capitalism and those places. Like there's a reason why things might be like extremely cheap and to us. And like while that affords a lot of possibilities, there's still something about that that's troubling. Like it's like we can't move to a place and become the new elites that we ran away from. So I'm thinking about that. And the other one is as we are building these kind of hubs of communities of Black folks who left the United States, let's say, for example, in Playa, how are we actually integrated more deeply into the rhythm and the places where with the real people who are there, particularly the folks who are struggling the most and catching the most hell, which, by the way, probably in any context we're in is going to be Black people.
Yes.
Right. And so I don't see that yet. And it could be it's because folks, as they're exiting in this current iteration, are just trying to get their feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Trying to get their bearing. Like, okay, like let me get right. But I'm hoping to see like at some point like that next step where our people are not just building with each other, where we're building solidarity with the Black folks, other folks who are struggling, disrupting the systems and modeling new ways of living and thriving with the folks who've been struggling the most. Not just with ourselves. We don't become these enclaves, but we become like these gardens, if you will.
Ooh, yes. Yes. That's my hope too. And I'm definitely curious to see how this next iteration of the movement will address those things. Now, you all have been dropping gems all throughout this conversation, but for those who want to quit and don't know where to start, what are the top 3 steps you recommend they take right now?
Go to wequitamerica.com and get our book and like get your mind right. Like that's the main first.
Get your mind right.
Get your mind right. Go ahead, Ronnie. Let me think.
I would say follow folks like Courtney.
Thank you.
Who are already amplifying. The book is a snapshot. Courtney, folks like you who have these platforms are amplifying what's happening in real time. And so I would like make that a part of I encourage people to make what you're doing and these platforms a part of their normal media, social media, information consumption. And I had to do this. If the CNNs and the MSNBCs are like the primary like sources, like we're still kind of being acclimated and socialized inside of the empire's narrative, right? And others like you are presenting this counter narrative. And so, and this unique, I think this goes right to what you were just saying. It's about getting your mind right and having a different orientation to the world, right? So that would be
that's good.
One step.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that, because as a media scholar, y'all, I watch the direction that our mainstream media platforms and sources are going. And just like the government is sliding into authoritarianism and fascism, so are our media sources, right? Yeah. And I would argue that a great many of them are propaganda, designed to keep you stuck, designed to keep you in fear and in scarcity, right? And so one of the other intentions with creating this platform is to offer something different, to offer a humanizing depiction and narrative of our people, because for far too long, the mainstream media has reduced us down to stereotypes and harmful tropes. And I'm here to say that we are so much more than those narratives that they paint of us. And that's why it's so important for us to tell our own stories in our own words.
Yeah. I have another one too. And it could be challenging for folks, and we need to figure out a way to make this easy. Visit some places outside the United States where it's it's unlikely that you would have gone there like by yourself, right? So Jamaica even like is one of those places that Black folks love to go, but like I don't know about if like folks are really thinking about Playa like the way they think about like a Jamaica. Now it might be now because so many of y'all are there. Like, matter of fact, the last time we were on, we heard some folks saying we closed it. But like, go visit some places and try to stay if you can for an extended period and get off the resort.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get off the resort and go like see like how folks are living. Because I think this is another I think thing that came out of me growing up as an Air Force brat. We saw different places and different people and different ways of being, and that exposure does something. And if you can, get to the continent.
Yes.
Put your feet on African soil. Right. Yep. So that would be a big one for me. Be exposed and see what's possible beyond the lake that we've been swimming in the United States.
So good. Y'all, this has been such a necessary conversation. There's so much to sit with, from how we can quit America to sustain our lives beyond the States, to how we can unlearn harmful conditioning. Before we wrap up, what's next for you both, and where can people follow your work?
What's next? A couple of things. So my first book, the one that Ronnie mentioned earlier, White Women Crying Call Me Angry, is being adapted into a film. And we will be, moving across the country and in places outside of the U.S. To share this film, to gather Black women together, to talk about what we've been through and how we can heal from what we've been through. So that's top of mind for me, with this film coming out in less than 6 months. So yeah, that's my big project that I'm working on right now. Very exciting.
Sounds very exciting.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to the other stuff we had talked about earlier, right now YANIQUE and I are in the midst of a multi-country tour where we're trying to see how Black folks are living. And so Egypt, and that included Cairo, Alexandria, Aswan, Nubia, and Luxor, Morocco. Right now we're in Lisbon, and we're going to be bumping down to Senegal. And then my father's family is from Cape Verde Islands, which is off the west coast of Africa. And I think the next step for me and us is like trying to make sense of all that. Like, we've seen so much, we've experienced so much while we've been in these places, and how do we actually make meaning of what we've seen and experienced and give that back to our people who are thinking about, maybe folks who aren't thinking about what it would look like to quit to one of these places or some other place around the planet. So like stepping back for a moment to see like, what did we just experience, and how do we actually come on, communications scholar, right? How do we actually communicate that to our people in a meaningful movement building way?
If you have not read We Quit America yet, please, I implore you to grab a copy, go to wequitamerica.com, follow Dr. YANIQUE and Ronnie's work, and keep this conversation going. Thank you both for being here and for sharing your powerful insights for all of us to consider and implement.
And thank you, Courtney, for those questions.
Yes. Best ever. Best ever.
Well, I try. Thank you both. America's next great migration is underway, and this time it's gone global. Black Expat Stories is here to capture it. We're documenting the pioneers of the Blaxit movement through intimate conversations that go well beyond the highlight reel, because these aren't just interviews, they're testimonies of courage, of healing, and of how we made it over. Every story becomes part of our living cultural archive, so that future generations won't have to guess how we felt or why we left. They'll hear it straight from us. We've built a global community rooted in solidarity, truth-telling, and mutual care. And we're just getting started. So, if this work has moved you, if it sparked something in you, affirmed your path, or expanded your sense of what's possible, I invite you to support the show today. Visit blackexpatstories.com/support. Your contributions help us capture more on-location stories, elevate our production, and lay the foundation for a future docuseries on the Blaxit movement. That's blackexpatstories.com/support, because this isn't just a moment, it's a movement. And with your help, we'll make sure the revolution is televised so these stories echo far beyond our time. Thanks for listening and watching as we continue exploring the journeys of Black expats finding freedom, healing, and belonging across the globe. Are you feeling inspired to embark on your own expat journey? Hit subscribe to join the conversation and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Black Expat Stories for sneak peeks and more expat insights. However you choose to connect, keep your passport ready and your dreams without borders. Until next time, I wish you peace, love, and passport stamps.